continues here on One News Now Business. I'm Danny Laurel. Now here are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate fronts. President Bongbong Marcos graced the groundbreaking ceremony for the Cebu Rapid Bus Transit Project. Marcos Jr. was accompanied by House Speaker Martin Romualdez, Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia, and other officials. The CBRT project is a 13.8-kilometer segregated lane with 17 bus stations that is seen to cater to over 160,000 passengers daily. It is expected to be partially operational by the fourth quarter of the year and fully operational by 2025. Now, prior to that event, the chief executive also led the launching of Kadiwa ng Pangulo program in Cebu. He vowed to expand the initiative to help more local farmers and provide cheaper products to more consumers.
Ay ipapagpatuloy hindi lamang po sa Cebu ito, sa buong Pilipinas natin ginagawa. Nabis na sa 500 ang kadiwa na aming ginagawa sa iba't ibang lugar sa Pilipinas. At ito naman ay para makapagbigay tayo ng pagkakataon na para sa ating mga consumer na makakita naman na affordable, yung medyo kaya ang presyuhan.
Transport Group Manibela plans to stage a transport strike that may last for 3 to 5 days next week. Manibela President Mar Valbuena said the planned strike is to show their opposition to the June 30 deadline for drivers and operators of traditional jeepneys to consolidate into cooperatives. Valbuena explained that a huge number of drivers and operators are still having a hard time securing loans for modernized units. The group is expecting around 40,000 jeepneys and UV Express to participate in the transport strike across Metro Manila.
Next week na po ang target date natin, pero mamaya pag-uusapan pa po namin ng aming mga kasamahan pagdating po nila yung talagang ilalabas po namin eksaktong date kung anong araw po yung unang araw ng tigil pasada.
The Trade Department reports that about 239 billion pesos worth of investment projects are now in the implementation stage. Trade Secretary Fred Pascual said President Bongbong Marcos directed him to ensure that the pledges are followed through. Marcos Jr. had earlier said that his foreign trips has so far generated more than 414 billion pesos in total investment projects. Now, the government is considering offering dollar-denominated retail treasury bonds in the second quarter. Finance Secretary Ben Diokno says there is a lot of interest for dollar bonds from London and Frankfurt and even from Japan. The administration's economic team earlier held briefings and pitches in these cities. However, there is no volume for the proposed offering. Back in December, Diokno said the government was targeting to offer retail dollar bonds within the first 3 months of the year with an expected volume of $3 billion. However, this was pushed back after the government raised 162 billion pesos from an RTB sale this month. The Philippines' last dollar bond sale was held in 2021 where it raised $1.6 billion. The tightening cycle will likely continue, but the size of next month's rate hike could be smaller. Bangko Sentral Governor Felipe Medalla says it is, quote, most likely that the Monetary Board will increase rates by 25 basis points off the back of signs of slower inflation in February. Medalla says there is a great possibility that inflation has already peaked in January as non-monetary measures are starting to dampen price hikes. Inflation zoomed to a fresh 14-year high of 8.7% in January, prompting the Bangko Sentral to raise rates by another 50 basis points. And this brought the key interest rate to a near 16-year high of 6%. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. still watching One News Now Business, I'm Danny Laurel. SM Prime Holdings is considering reviving an initial public offering of a real estate investment trust that could raise as much as $1 billion. That is according to a report by Bloomberg. People familiar with the matter say that the company has started discussions with advisors on listing its shopping mall portfolio through this REIT. A possible first-time share sale in Manila is said to happen as early as the fourth quarter. Bloomberg also reports that Metro Pacific Hospital is also mulling the revival of its own IPO plans, which were shelved in 2019. Sources say the group is weighing buying out minority stakes in some of its hospitals to pave the way for the maiden offering. Metro Pacific could seek to raise up to $1 billion in a potential IPO that could take place as soon as the first half of 2024. Meanwhile, PLDT is reportedly considering the sale of a significant minority stake in its data center assets that's following its budget overrun. The company is reportedly weighing bringing in an investor into its data center business as per Bloomberg. People familiar with the matter say a transaction could value the business at up to $800 million. And Finnish 5G equipment maker Nokia has launched a new logo to stop people from associating it with mobile phones. The new logo comprises 5 different shapes forming the word Nokia. The company has also dropped the iconic blue color of the old logo for a range of colors depending on the use. Nokia on Sunday revealed the redesigned logo as the company focuses on aggressive growth as a business tech company. Major tech firms have been partnering with telecom gear makers such as Nokia for private 5G networks and gears for automated factories to customers mostly in the manufacturing sector. Russia's war on the Ukraine has entered its second year, with the United Nations General Assembly calling on Moscow to end hostilities and withdraw its forces from Ukraine. The war has displaced millions of civilians and cost thousands of lives. And on the economic side, the war has upended the global economy. Tom Donilan, former National Security Advisor of the United States, gives us a sense of how geopolitics has changed investments and businesses globally. Let's listen in.
As an investor, what I hear is risk and geopolitical risk in particular creeping in to really reduce a lot of my returns. Is it all risk, or is there also opportunity, do you see?
All this opportunity, I think, but it is important, I think, to understand that geopolitics, in ways that wasn't the case, right? I think wasn't the case really before the dynamics really were driven by COVID, by the Russian invasion, by these repeated shocks to the system, but especially the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I do think that any analysis, right, with respect to investing, has to take into account now geopolitics in ways that you might not have before. Energy is a good example of that, David, right? You know, where if you look at the energy situation right now, geopolitics has really kind of come back to the fore with respect to energy dynamics. And you have geopolitical dynamics as opposed to markets and efficiencies and economics driving a lot of these energy flows and relationships, right? You see the politicization, the weaponization of energy, right? You see, I think, significant government interventions in the energy markets as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and a number of these crises. You see winners and losers, right? You know, the United States has become a very important exporter in terms of supporting our allies, especially in Europe. You see Russia dramatically diminished, I think, over time. The International Energy Agency, right, has said that Russia will be a much diminished energy power over the next decade. And you see, in the short term here, maybe for some period of time, real transfers of wealth to the Middle East. The IMF estimates that $1.3 trillion in additional revenues will go into the Gulf oil-producing countries between now and 2026. So I guess the bottom line there is that your lens now, in terms of analysis and investing, and your risk analysis has to take into account geopolitics in ways that you really didn't have to do, I think, during the golden age of globalization.
So, Tom, I'm curious about, I'll call it the rest of the world that you described, not the West, Russia, China, but the rest of the world, and particularly some of the big players, India, Indonesia, Brazil, countries like that. Do we have a sense of whether this geopolitical conflict is bringing them closer to the West or farther away from the West, or are they still deciding?
I think there's competition, right, between over this. Also, I think you also see that the global South and the countries you mentioned are not as deeply involved, if you will, in the Russia-Ukraine situation as the West and the United States are. They've been affected, by the way. They've been affected by the effects on inflation, by the effects on energy prices, specifically, by energy flows, food prices. They've been affected by this, by the dynamics in Europe, but obviously are not as directly involved. And of course, I think what you do see is that these countries trying to manage their way to protect their interests, right, as between these two significant blocks of countries. And you see the competition all over the world right now. And you see it's a competition. It's over economics. It's over values, right? It's over geopolitics. It's over security. And I think it's really kind of come to the fore how expressed this competition is and how these countries, right, kind of outside the core of the West, are having to navigate and kind of protect and seek to advance their interests.
For more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online, or visit our website, onenews.ph. For more in-depth analysis, you can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now. That's at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Danny Laurel. Join us again at 2 p.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.